Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, back again with another episode with my co-host, Michael, here. In this episode, we're going to be talking about reform and acceptance, right? He had the idea to do this particular episode after a class that we take together, sponsored by Western Kentucky, and we were studying the Notebook. And that is, meditations that were written. Well, it's about Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome at one time. Mm-hmm. After he died, this book was published. These are all of his private thoughts and notes that he wrote. Never tried to publish, but after his death, they published them, right? So we were studying that in class about a week ago, and he wanted to talk about that because it resonated with him in the aspect of how society is reluctant to accept us once we leave and have paid our debt to society, right? So with that, we're going to be talking about that. I think you're going to enjoy this show. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. What's going on, man?
Same old, same old.
Same old, same old. I feel you on that. Now, I opened up by talking about, that you were talking to me when we were leaving class the other night about this particular subject. What was it that happened in class to me? Before we get to this particular quote that caught your attention, what was it about what was being said that you think is important enough for people out there that they need to be listening to?
Well, it was when Steve read that quote and the explanation that he gave to that quote is what resonated with me. And I immediately thought of when Pac there was a poem or something, but the rose that grew out of concrete.
Tupac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you notice the damaged petals and everything of the rose, but you don't look at the strength of that rose to grow out of that concrete.
Right. Well, let me read this quote first, and then we're going to get into a little bit more deeper about what it is. And this is from Meditations. It's Notebook 3. For those of you that don't know, let me look at the front of this because some people out there might want to buy this. Well, I'll have to get that information to you later on, right? But these are the notes that belong to Marcus Aurelius. He was the emperor of Rome, and like I said in the opening. But this is the quote that, we were talking about in class. It says, "One should also take careful note of things such as the fact that even the byproducts of natural phenomena have a certain charm and attractiveness. For example, in the process of baking bread, the loaf breaks open in some places, and although these cracks in a sense represent a failure of the baker's art, they do somehow catch the eye and in their own way stimulate the desire to eat the bread. Or again, when figs are fully ripe, they split open, and in the case of ripe olives, the very fact that they are on the verge of rotting gives the fruit a specific kind of beauty. The same goes for ears of wheat bowing down to the ground, a lion's wrinkled brow, or a boar foaming at the mouth, and many other things. They are hardly lovely if viewed in isolation, but they enhance the appeal of the natural phenomenon of which they are, I can't even pronounce that word. Y'all must forgive me for that. Concomitants, and so we find them attractive. So there's almost nothing that a sensitive person with a deep enough understanding of the workings of the universe will fail to find pleasing in its manifestations, including these incidental concomitants. He gets as much pleasure from seeing the gaping jaws of actual wild beasts as he does from the second-hand representation of them by painters and sculptors. He's able to see a kind of perfection and beauty in the elderly of both sexes and to view the sexual attractiveness of slaves with chaste eyes. And although most people will find few such cases plausible, that's because they are not genuinely familiar with nature and its works. Now that is some complicated stuff, but it's really simple in what he's saying. To me, the beauty can also be found in flaws.
Yeah.
That's what I get out of that. So what was it that Dr. Steve was saying in the class, again, like I say, that really struck you? Because you were real adamant about that we should do a show about this.
Well, I wrote it in my notes and I didn't bring it, but he said basically, we're not a sum of our worst action.
Right.
And to say, when it said about the bread breaking and
right.
and there's my brokenness was my conviction, my felony.
Right. All of us. Yeah.
That's what made me who I am today. Not all of it, but if I hadn't received that, if I hadn't done what I did, I don't think that I'd be where I am today. So
and I get that, but let me interject real quick. I get that, but a lot of us say that, and I get that too, right? But the part that I think a lot of people have a hard time reconciling is that particularly when you talk about somebody that's committed a violent crime like we did, how do you're not taking pride in what you did.
Not at all.
To become who you are. And I want people to understand that, because we don't. We don't take pride in what we did. But if not for that tragedy, those tragedies that we dealt with, right?
Yeah.
If not for those tragedies that we caused, it's a possibility that we don't become who we are today.
Yes.
People that see the world totally different.
Yes.
Right. Okay, go ahead.
And I say, don't just see that felony. Don't see that felony conviction, because, like it says, when you see that bread break, in the end of it, the natural phenomenon that comes out of it is, you got the bread. It's, wow, this is a nice loaf of bread.
Right.
So look at us like that. This is a well-rounded man now. This is a person that can contribute to society now. Don't look at my past, because the silliness that I was into was far smaller than the things that I do today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The person that I have been for the last 20 some odd years is that person that I was 27 years ago doesn't compare to the time that I've been reformed.
Right. Right. Who you are today. It's like that analogy that Steve used about the broken pot. I think it was a pot or a vase, right?
It was
Was it a
China,
vase?
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was something like that, right? But I'm going to use a vase as the example, and I don't want to disrespect Dr. Steve and the story that he told, but if it wasn't a vase, I apologize. But you drop that vase and break it, right? Mm-hmm. And you use gold glue to put it back together. You feel what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Now, when he got to that part about putting it back together with that gold and glue, right? Now, when you look at that vase, it's not the same. It's not smooth on the outside. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah. But it has these cracks, but these cracks are adorned now with gold and all of these other things that make it look totally different, totally unique now. This is a totally different vase. It's not the vase that you drop. And it's beauty in that. It's beauty in that vase now, the way it is. It is totally different. It is totally reformed, just like what you're saying about yourself and those of us that go through that transformation. We are not, when we were in the class talking, the conversation became rehabilitation versus reform. Yeah. Right? And you said that you didn't believe in rehabilitation.
No, not that I don't believe in it.
You didn't believe.
It's not for me.
It's not for you. For me. And explain that.
Excuse me. Because rehabilitation puts something back to the way it was. I was broken. So if you put me back to being that broken person, I don't want to be that. But a rehabilitated person, a reformed person is a new person, is a new being. I'm not anything what I used to be. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I have to say that I'm reformed, because I'm not the same. But like you said with the vase, you put it together, it's reformed. It's not the same as it was before.
No, it's a totally different
object.
It's a totally different object, and it's beauty in those cracks. It's because there's a story there. You know what I'm saying? And that's the same what they're talking about in the meditations when they talk about the loaf of bread. Yeah. You can say that because the bread cracks and breaks in certain places, that the baker didn't do his job in kneading the dough and all this and that, right? But it's beauty in there because every loaf is what? Different and unique. It's different and unique. And that's what we are. You know what I mean? Yeah. But a lot of people have a hard time accepting us. Why do you think that is, though?
Because you have fools that get out and continue doing the same dumb stuff.
Okay, let me stop you real quick. Let me stop you on that. Is it more so on the individuals getting out, or is it on the people that are observing those, the law-abiding citizens out there? Because I think that some of the onus has to be on the people that are out there in the way they view us. Their worldview is what it is, right? So how is it that it always has to be on the individual, us, that's getting out to show, even though people mess up, they mess up. People out there in the world are messing up every day now. The spotlight is on us because we're convicted felons, as they say.
It is.
Right. So what I'm saying is, you take somebody that gets out, doesn't do anything wrong, gets a job, starts their own business, and successful, and you still have people looking at them like nothing. So how do you explain that? Because I think you are about to use the analogy of somebody that gets out and messes up.
Yeah, and they view us all as that. They view us all as being that type or doing that. Right.
So shouldn't some of the onus be on the individual that's doing the observation, that's doing the observing? Because if you're looking at everybody like, and there's clear evidence of this person over here that is not doing anything, he's contributing to his community, to his household, he's working, he's doing what he's supposed to do, or she's doing what she's supposed to do, and then you got this other knucklehead over here that's acting a plumb fool. But you say, instead of, what you do is you look at everybody like they're this plumb fool. But there's evidence over here that this guy over here or this woman over here is doing the right thing. So shouldn't it be about the person that's doing the observing?
Well, you have to think about society. The media sensationalizes it.
Yeah.
They sensationalize it by always talking about it. Like we just saw in the news the other day, if you saw it at the Hilton. This guy woke up to somebody doing something to his feet.
Yeah.
And the guy was supposedly hid his felonies, said how he got the job.
Yeah.
So, things like that. And you sensationalize it. This guy had a long list of felonies. He did this, he did that. All right. In the same note, why don't you speak about those people that are, like you said, that are living right, that are contributing to society? Why don't you tell the public about them?
So basically you're saying that the public should believe, it's kind of like the public is being tricked in.
It is. Because if you think about the recidivism rate, this recidivism rate is what, 70-something%?
Yeah, right at that, yeah.
But that's as a whole. If you take it out the violent offenders and just put the violent offenders by themselves, it was like 3%.
Yeah.
3%.
After age, what is it, 40, 45, something like that? Yeah.
So, I mean, and you have to, but people don't see that. All they see is the violence that happened. But the chances of us coming back, those of us that have done, what we're supposed to do.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to separate like that? Why do you think it's so hard for people to say, I'm going to, for lack of a better term, judge you based on you and not based on all of the people involved in criminal activities that you came from? Why is that? Why do you think that is?
I guess they feel like they can't separate them because it's like this. Which one weighs more, 10 pound weight or 10 pounds of feathers?
Yeah, I think, that's a good point. I just think that fear overrides, in common sense sometimes, because people are so afraid that if they give the benefit of the doubt that this person is going to do, something crazy and disappoint them. So it's best to just push them away and don't even deal with them. But, I was talking earlier today, and I was talking about how people have to come to understand that everybody that gets out of prison is not the same.
No, not at all.
We're not the same people that we were, and we're not all the same type. We're not all cut from the same cloth, even though we all committed felonies, so to speak, to get put in here. We're just not the same. We're not the same. What do they say? We're not a monolith? Is that what they say?
Yeah.
And that's just what it is in here, but it's hard for people to separate what we have in common, which is the felony, from the person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, I appreciate you bringing this up, man, and talking about it. I hope that people out there listen to it and get an understanding of it. But if you have something that you want to add to this, please feel free to hit me up in the comment section, and then we'll talk about it, and maybe me and Michael will do another episode about it, trying to follow up on your questions. But why do you think people are less accepting of people getting out of prison? What do you think is going on with that when the evidence is clear in a lot of cases where you have some people that are overcomers, and they do the right thing, and then you have some people that continue to fall into the traps. But everybody's judged as the individuals that fall in the trap. Why do you think that is? So if you have any comments about that, hit us up in the comments. So you got anything else you want to say about that, Mike?
No, that's all.
That's all you got?
That's all I got for you.
Dig that. Well, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate you doing this right. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.